Okay, third chapter, Winter Night. After supper, Almanzo took care of his moccasins. So his chores aren't even done, y'all. He just ate supper. Every night, he sat by the kitchen stove and rubbed them with tallow. We gotta find out what tallow is. Because they're real leather, so it's got to be some kind of softening thing. Or preserve, I don't know. He held them in the heat and rubbed the melting tallow over the leather with the palm of his hand. His moccasins would always be comfortably soft and keep his feet dry as long as the leather was well greased, and he didn't stop rubbing until it would absorb no more tallow. Royal sat by the stove too, and he greased his boots. Almanzo couldn't have boots. He had to wear moccasins because he was a little boy. Mother and the girls washed the dishes and swept the pantry kitchen, and downstairs in the big cellar, Father cut up carrots and potatoes to feed the cows. The next day. When the work was done, Father came into the cellar stairs, bringing a big pitcher of sweet cider and a pan full of apples. Royal took the corn popper and a pannikin of popcorn. Pannikin. 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 Okay, Royal took the corn popper and a pannikin of popcorn. Mother banked the kitchen fire with ashes for the night. And when everyone else had left the kitchen, she blew out the candles. They all settled down cozily by the big stove in the dining room wall. The back of the stove was in the parlor, where nobody went except when company came. It was a fine stove. It warmed the dining room and the parlor. Its chimney warmed the bedroom stairs, and its whole top was an oven. Nice. Royal opened its iron door, and with the poker he broke the charred logs into the shimmering bed of coals. He put 3 handfuls of popcorn into the big wire popper and shook the popper over the coals. In a little while, a kernel popped, then another, then 3 or 4 at once. And all at once, furiously, the hundreds of little pointed kernels exploded. I bet that'd be neat to see that over a fire. I mean, we threw a bag of microwave popcorn in a campfire one time, and it popped just a little bit. That's totally different, though. When the big dishpan was heaping full of fluffy white popcorn, Alice poured melted butter over it and stirred and salted it. Man, that sounds good. It was hot and crackling crisp and deliciously buttery and salty, and everyone could eat all he wanted to. Mother knitted and rocked in her high-backed rocking chair. Father carefully scraped a new axe handle with a bit of broken glass. Royal carved a chain of tiny links from a smooth stick of pine, and Alice sat on her hassock doing her wool work embroidery. And they all ate popcorn and apples and drank sweet cider, except Eliza Jane. Eliza Jane read aloud the news in the New York weekly paper. Almanzo sat on a footstool by the stove, an apple in his hand, a bowl of popcorn by his side, and his mug of cider on the hearth by his feet. Man, that just sounds so cozy. He bit the juicy apple and he ate some popcorn. Then he took a drink of cider. He thought about popcorn. Popcorn is American. Nobody but the Indians ever had popcorn till after the Pilgrim Fathers came to America. On the first Thanksgiving Day, the Indians were invited to dinner, and they came and they poured out on the table a big bagful of popcorn. The Pilgrim Fathers didn't know what it was. The Pilgrim Mothers didn't know either. The Indians had popped it. But probably it wasn't very good. Probably they didn't butter it or salt it, and it would be cold and tough after they had carried it around and a bag of skins. Almanzo looked at every kernel before he ate it. They were all different shapes. He had eaten thousands of handfuls of popcorn and never found two kernels alike. Then he thought that if he had some milk, he would have popcorn and milk. You can fill a glass full to the brim with milk and fill another glass of the same size brim full of popcorn. And then you can put all the popcorn kernels, kernel by kernel, into the milk, and the milk would not run over. Are y'all going to try that? You cannot do this with bread. Popcorn and milk are the only two things that will go into the same place. Shut the door, it's cold. Then, too, they were good to eat. But Almanzo was not very hungry, and he knew Mother would not want the milk pans disturbed. If you disturb milk when the cream is rising, the cream will not be so thick. Excuse me. So Almanzo ate another apple and drank cider with his popcorn and did not say anything about popcorn and milk. When the clock struck 9, that was bedtime. 9 o'clock. They did all this, it's not even 9 o'clock yet. Royal, which makes me think, what in the world, what time did they get to school? 5 a.m. or something? I can't remember what time it said. Oh, 8, it starts at, they say it starts at 8 or 9. I think it said it started at 9. Well, anyways, it's probably not an 8-hour day. Okay. Sidetracked. When the clock struck 9, that was bedtime. Royal laid away his chain and Alice her wool work. Mother stuck her needles into her ball of yarn, and Father wound the tall clock. He put another log in the stove and closed the dampers. It's a cold night, Mr. Corse said. 40 below zero. Whew, said Father, and it will be colder before morning. Royal lighted a candle, and Almanzo followed him sleepily into the stairway door. Why did I just hiss? I went hiss.
Hey, Mama.
The cold.
So, Belle just died, and she forgot about Rumple. Right
Oh,
before
don't
she
worry.
died.
Don't worry. Don't worry.
Okay, good.
The cold on the stairs made him wide awake at once. He ran clattering upstairs. The bedroom was so cold that he could hardly unbutton his clothes and put on his long woolen nightshirt and nightcap. Ooh, that's making me cold. He should have knelt down to say his prayers, but he didn't. His nose ached with cold and his teeth were chattering. He dived into the soft goose feather bed between the blankets and pulled the covers over his nose. The next thing he knew, the tall clock... Oh, I gotta pause. Okay, the next thing he knew, the tall clock downstairs was striking 12. The darkness pressed his eyes and forehead, and it seemed full of little prickles of ice. He heard someone move downstairs. Then the kitchen door opened and shut. He knew that Father was going to the barn. Even those great barns could not hold all Father's wealth of cows and oxen and horses and hogs and calves and sheep. 25 young cattle had to sleep under a shed in the barnyard. If they lay still all night on nights as cold as this, they would freeze in their sleep. Oh. So at midnight, in the bitter cold, Father got out of his warm bed and went to wake them up. Y'all think about that. Out in the dark, cold night, Father was rousing up the young cattle. He was cracking his whip and running behind them around and around the barnyard. He would run and keep them galloping till they were warmed with exercise. Almanzo opened his eyes again, and the candle was sputtering on the bureau. Royal was dressing. His breath froze white in the air. The candlelight was dim, as though the darkness were trying to put it out. Okay, think about this. If you weren't thinking about it before, listen, it is 40 degrees below zero. On my coldest night of all of my long decades of being alive,
It was
the coldest I can remember it ever being.
was 1 degree below zero last year.
Well, but in my lifetime, I can remember it being a little bit below zero. Yeah, just a couple digits below zero,
No,
but
actually-
not 40 degrees below zero. That's dangerous.
And they had no heating back then.
And Father gets up, right, and Father gets up at midnight. He gets up at midnight out of his warm, toasty bed in house and gets all dressed up to go let the animals run around so they don't die. Well, that's what their lives depend on. That's their livelihood. So, but how many of you guys, I sleep with an electric blanket. I would not want to get up in the middle of a freezing night. And, can you plug that up? And do that. No way. It'd be so much easier to stay in bed. All right. Can you make sure that that's plugged all the way into the wall? It is, okay. Okay, suddenly, Royal was gone. The candle was not there, and Mother was calling from the foot of the stairs. Almanzo, what's the matter? Be you sick? It's 5 o'clock. Oh, it's 5 a.m. already. He crawled out, shivering. He pulled on his trousers and waist and ran downstairs to button up by the kitchen stove. Father and Royal had gone to the barns. Almanzo took the milk pails and hurried out. The night seemed very large and still, and the stars sparkled like frost in the black sky. So he's getting up at 5 a.m. to do his chores before he goes to school. Bear in mind. Remember how cold it was in the cabin at the Ark? It was way colder than that.
So cold. I did that on
When the
purpose.
chores were done, and he came back with Father and Royal to warm the to the warm kitchen, breakfast was almost ready. What are they gonna have for breakfast? Okay, quit. When you do that, you're moving the phone. Stop.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, don't do that again.
Okay.
How good it smelled. Mother was frying pancakes, and the big blue platter keeping hot on the stove's hearth was full of plump brown sausage cakes in their brown gravy. What's a sausage cake? Man, there's so much stuff we gotta look up. Would you guys want to have dinner or breakfast with Almanzo's family? Because, man, it sounds like they eat good. Almanzo washed as quickly as he could and combed his hair. As soon as Mother finished straining the milk, they all sat down and Father asked the blessing for breakfast. There was oatmeal with plenty of thick cream and maple syrup. And bear in mind, this oatmeal had to be heated up in a pot with some milk. I mean, they didn't have microwave. This was not microwave oatmeal. And it takes a while because I've done it before. I mean, not on a fireplace, but on the stove in a pot and a pan. Anyways, whatever. There were fried potatoes. Man. And the golden buckwheat cakes, as many as Almanzo wanted to eat, with sausages and gravy with butter and maple syrup. There were preserves and jams and jellies and donuts. I mean, it takes me an hour to make pancakes and bacon.
Mama,
Golly.
all I would ever want to eat for breakfast is just a donut hole. It's a single donut hole. I'm not a big breakfast person.
Jace brought some donut holes to make. They look pretty good. They were good. But best of all, Almanzo liked the spicy apple pie. Oh, they have dessert for breakfast. With its thick, rich juice, I almost said juice, and its crumbly crust. He ate 2 big wedges of pie. Yeah.
Hey, Mama.
How old is this kid?
You know what I'm thinking when you said pie? No.
Let me finish, Mama.
Too much pie, that's your problem.
Too much pie, that's your problem.
You know, the other word after that.
Then, with his caps, warm earmuffs over his ears, and his muffler wrapped up to his nose, and the dinner pail in his mittened hand, he started down the long road to another day at school. He did not want to go. He did not want to be there when the big boys thrashed Mr. Course, but he had to go to school because he was almost 9 years old. That is the end of the 3rd chapter. Oh, the next chapter is called Surprise. What happens? Don't know. We'll have to find out. Y'all can keep reading if you want, or you can wait and read the next 3 chapters next week.